Welcome back. This is World Insight. Ensuring the full enforcement of the nation's constitution will be one of the main tasks in the top legislatures this year's agenda, according to a draft work report unveiled on Monday. A draft decision to introduce national security legislation for the Hong Kong SAR is under deliberation at China's national legislature during its ongoing annual session. What does it mean for people and businesses in Hong Kong, and why it is so important now? Will it help restore stability and confidence in the SAR for the long run? For insights, I talked to Bernard Charnwut Chan, an NPC Deputy and also Convener of the non-official members of the Executive Council of Hong Kong SAR. Take a listen. Mr. Chan, welcome to CGTN. Let me ask you your take on the possible legislation regarding national security issues about Hong Kong. What do you make of the very divided opinion, it seems, about the reactions?
In Article 23 of the Basic Law, allow Hong Kong to enact this piece of legislation. But for 23 years, we haven't done so. In fact, we did make an attempt back in 2003, but we did not manage to pass it. And so, this has been long overdue. And so, but the event happened last year. Can allow us to wait any longer. I mean, as you can see from the social unrest last year. And not to mention that there are some foreign interference in Hong Kong. Notably, in particular, one country, they have been very vocal about the events in Hong Kong, and politicians from this country even come to Hong Kong to show support to some of the protesters. So I think again, I mean, it is only right for the mainland authority to step in. After all, they have authorized Hong Kong to legislate the law, but we have failed to do so. So I think this is definitely the right direction. But I do agree, though, this is just the first step. We have to do a lot of explaining to the people in Hong Kong that the passing of this legislation will not diminish any, like, for example, freedom of expression. This has nothing to do with freedom of expression, right? So I think this is more about the national security interest that has to be the most important to Hong Kong and to the country. Yeah. So I think once this legislation is passed, I think we have to find out the details, especially about the enforcement. How to enforce this piece of law. I'm sure it will be complied with the law in Hong Kong as well.
Mr. Chan, what do you make of how the Hong Kong SAR will proceed from here once the legislation comes into being, once the details are known?
Once the decision is made, being put forward by the Standing Committee of the NPC, I'm sure the Hong Kong government would then have to promulgate this piece of legislation and to put into law. So I think the Hong Kong government would also need to then illustrate what sort of conditions, under what sort of conditions will people violate this piece of law. I think when we first made the attempt back in 2003, one of the reasons why we failed to pass this law back then was that it was not enough explanation was made. People were very concerned about whether they were accidentally got caught in this piece of legislation. So I think once the law is in passed, we have to be very specific and to explain to people under what sort of conditions is allowed and not allowed, because I think that will clear up all these misunderstandings. So I think that's important, the next step for Hong Kong government to take forward.
With the current situation of a challenging international environment for China as a whole, how would the Hong Kong issue, particularly national security related to Hong Kong issue, likely to play it out? Is Hong Kong ready for all possibilities?
Yeah. The social unrest that took place last year in Hong Kong is a mixture of a couple of things. First of all, I think it's partly because Hong Kong is a free capital, very capitalist city. So we definitely suffer from the consequences of globalization as well as these so-called winner-takes-all situations. So people in Hong Kong are frustrated that they feel that they've been marginalized. They feel that some of the advantages that they used to lead is no longer there. So I think they feel that they're under threat. Now with the issue, the rising of China and the U.S. continuously become an issue for Hong Kong. I think we were caught in the middle of all these things. And I'm sure with even COVID-19, clearly, China, and we've done much better in containing the virus than the U.S. So, and of course, you now see U.S. blaming China for not telling the U.S. early enough. So this kind of rhetoric will continue. And again, I think our decision to legislate this piece of national security law will give another excuse for the U.S. To point fingers to China, and they will probably, and they already have, in fact, raised suggestions to impose sanctions on China. It's certainly not helpful. In fact, it's going to hurt not just us, but also the U.S. as well. So this is definitely no-win situation for everyone. But I can see why the reason they're doing that. With the election coming, and the tough economic and health situation in the U.S. So they need to find a scapegoat. They need to blame someone. So they certainly will point fingers to China, and Hong Kong will be an easy target for them.
Mr. Chan, another question. The Legislative Council election is coming up, and this is a very different backdrop we're talking about when this piece of legislation likely to come into being. So once again, how do you see that combination?
I think we were definitely going to see some short-term disturbance in Hong Kong. But I think for the long-term prosperity of Hong Kong, the passing of this legislation is probably is a good thing. So I think as soon as this bill is being passed, this law being passed, if there's enough explanation made to the people to allow them to understand the reason for passing this law, why this law will not affect the daily life, their daily lives. We hope that people are sensible enough not to behave differently in the way how they choose their legislators in the September election. The government and the supporter of the government needs to be very responsible and needs to come out to explain to the electors.
Mr. Chen, earlier, in order to deal with the discrepancies and also inequalities existing in Hong Kong, the SAR government has put forward several kinds of supportive initiatives to support the poor, relatively poor families and also unemployment issues. However, the economy as a result of COVID-19 is getting ever more challenged. So how do you see, Mr. Chen, as the convener of the Executive Council, those earlier measures could be implemented?
Hong Kong government have came up with a $37 billion economic relief package to the people in Hong Kong to address the effects of COVID-19. And within that $37 billion package, there is a $10 billion specifically target employment. So this $10 billion is the purpose is to retain employment in companies. So that money will go out very soon. We're talking about a matter of another maybe within a month's time. So hopefully that will help to retain jobs. So the aim of the Hong Kong government right now is about retaining jobs and also creating new jobs and even advancing jobs. So raising the standard, raising the skill set. Now, of course, nobody knows how long COVID-19 will sustain. It could be longer than 6 months. So I don't expect that this economic relief package would just only stay for 6 months. It would probably need to extend further. But since Hong Kong and the mainland and Taiwan and Macau, we have done so well in containing the virus, we could be leading the way of reopening back our society, reopening travels and business.
Do you have, from the SAR's perspective, a initial possibility or blueprint as to how we're going to approach that?
Since February 8th to May 1st, we have now so far 160,000 people arrival. 160,000 people arrived to Hong Kong, have now gone through a 14 days quarantine, a home quarantine. And out of the 160,000, close to about 100,000 came from the mainland, Macau or Taiwan, predominantly from the mainland. Meantime, the remaining 60,000 people who came from the rest of the world, we have about 440 people turned positive after 14 days of home quarantine. So scientifically, you can say those from the mainland are very safe because in the mainland they've done very well in containing the virus. So I think it's only obvious that if we start to reopen, we should start with the mainland Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan. So because these places are safe. But however, I don't think leisure traveling will return anytime soon. But we should at least start back with those maybe business travel, and then slowly opening up to the mass.
Mr. Chen, for the next few months in Hong Kong, there's also likely to be another debate about the education. As you may know, there are different plans being proposed about what should be included in the liberal arts education, as they say. Some are related to the history of Hong Kong, and others are related to whether politics should be put into it. From your perspective, how to proceed from now?
I grew up in Hong Kong. I grew up under the colonial years, and we didn't learn much about our own history, history of Hong Kong, nor is the modern history of China. I think it was a deliberate decision at the time. We were not being taught a lot. But what's surprising is, though, even after 23 years of Hong Kong return to China, that situation didn't improve that much either. So I think it's only understandable that we have to look back into the situation. How best we teach our next generation to understand better of the mainland, and I think partly because of the lack of that understanding of the mainland, that sometimes gives unnecessary these speculation. After all, Hong Kong is part of China, so I think we do need to have a revamp of the syllabus.
And my final question before we go, Mr. Chen, I remember the first interview with you. That was 2007, 10th anniversary of Hong Kong's return to China. It was in Hong Kong. I remember very clearly it was a rainy day and later cleared up. Now, time flies. You and I have been having many conversations in between. I just wonder, as someone who has been very ardently supporting Hong Kong's future and also Hong Kong's relation with the motherland, what do you make personally of the realities now, and also personally where Hong Kong is going?
Well, you're absolutely right. I've been involved in the politics in Hong Kong for the last 23 years since Hong Kong returned to the motherland. There's never been a moment without challenges. Immediately after the 97 changeover, Hong Kong was faced with the Asian financial crisis. In 2003, we faced with SARS, and then we have financial crisis in 2008, and obviously now we have our own social unrest together with COVID-19. So you understand, in each of that situation, Hong Kong managed to survive. We did it not just because just the will of the Hong Kong people. We survived because we have the motherland behind us. Each time, central government came in and gave Hong Kong that lifting hand. Of course, the challenge that we are facing today is much bigger. We have an external crisis we have to manage, the global economy, the trade war, and everything. But locally, we do have a problem. Inequality, to affordability, housing affordability. These are the same issues that many big cities, many residents of the big cities are complaining. So we just have to deal with it. Again, I'm still remain confident because again, we're not alone. First, we are not alone, and we have the motherland behind us too, to resolve these issues together, I'm still very hopeful. But the coming years with COVID-19 certainly will definitely push the economy back for a few years. And let's just hope that the whole world can manage to find a vaccine soon and try to restore the economy back to where it was. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. It takes a lot of work. But for now, I want to thank you, Mr. Chen, for your insights and also your analysis about Hong Kong. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Hope to see you soon.